know we want to have a coffee break right now. Let me go very quickly. Since we have a workshop session after this, and try to reduce it as much as possible. Before going forward, just one slide of the company. CD networks. Has anyone ever heard about like a CDN or content delivery network before? No? Some of you? Okay, fine. That means we actually deliver our contents to everywhere in the world, or accelerate your website through everywhere in the world, including China, through our 160 plus point of presence in 100 cities. The biggest thing is right now we accelerate like more than 40,000 domains or websites in the world right now. The company is founded in 2000 in Seoul, Korea. As you know, Koreans never patient about the latencies or slowness. They always say quick, quick, quick. So that's the basic thing. I think one of the biggest things for to doing online business with China is not only the latencies, but also the securities and also some of the regulation things. In year 2014, about 2,000 websites was blocked down by Chinese government in a day. And do you know why? Because some of the domain contains some contents that was illegal, not illegal, but prohibited by government. But before, all those 2,000 websites actually has authority and have registered in the Chinese government. But suddenly, some of the contents flew into the domain, then they're suddenly blocked. So try to avoid those kind of situations. You have to understand that what the correct file means and what actually affect on your online business. If you do have a platform only inside of China, and if you have a partnership with WeChat or Weibo, that's fine, still fine. But most of the companies or European website, you want to have your own website and brand in your own online services. Does anyone recognize this lady here? Let me just go into a bit story on this. I've been here in China Connect since last year. Last year, half of the discussion was about K-pops, Korean celebrities, how to utilize those celebrities in Chinese market as a marketing. This girl is 16-year-old Taiwanese girl. She's a member of a K-band, girl band called Twice. She was in Korean TV shows and shaking a little bit flags with Korean flags with Taiwanese flags. That's fine. There's nothing happened. But some of the Taiwanese celebrities in China, he actually captured the picture and uploaded in Weibo, saying, "Oh, isn't China one country? Why this girl just shaking the Taiwanese flag? Is this like against our policies?" Stuff like that. All those Chinese audiences in internet, Weibo and WeChat, just rise up saying, "This is wrong. This is something happens. We don't accept this." Blah blah blah. Now, JYP is one of the biggest Korean entertainment company, which is in the company right now. The CEO just guided her to make an apology to Chinese people, like on the right-hand side. And also the CEO of JYP also apologized to Chinese people as well, right now. And another side effect happens from Taiwan side. And Taiwanese rise up again. Why we can't shaking our national flag? Why we have to bow to Chinese all the time? And it actually affected on Taiwanese election. And right now, and actually has impacted on the current president. The current president is from Democratic Progressive Party, which is more like Taiwan independent side. So now, right now, and in Korea again, the Korean Human Rights Committee sued JYP to Korean court, saying the company actually pressed down this little girl as a human right. So just one little happens in Korean TV show, just like the butterfly effect, trying to affect everywhere in China, Taiwan, Korea, and more Asia right now. So the thing is, when this happens, for several hours in Weibo, you cannot search her name and Taiwan president name, all those stuff. Can anyone recognize this? Have you ever heard about somebody from China? The lovers from the stars last year. Let me show something about the video from 2-minute break. It's substitute for the coffee break.
인류 봉사에 바칠 것을 엄숙히 서약하노라. 나는 인종, 종교, 국적, 사회적 지위를 초월하여 오직 환자에 대한 나의 의무를 지키겠노라.
의사면 남친 없겠네요. 바빠서.
군인이면 여친 없겠네요. 빡세서.
There's more chance of getting hurt being around a guy with a gun.
유시진 씨는 멋있지만 너무 위험하고 위험해서 싫은데 눈 마주친 모든 순간이 매력적이죠.
뭐랄까? 사과할까요? 고백할까요?
How many times have I told you? You're more likely to get shot being around a guy with a gun. And then one day,
선배! 응답 바랍니다. 선배님!
you'll never come back.
This is one of typical Korean TV show, and it's on the air right now. On the last day of March, this is #1 in search in Weibo right now, 7 billion search. And the iQIYI, which is the live streaming, the streaming provider in internet in China right now. Sorry for that. They had like 4 billion views already. So right now, all the contents, until, for example, last year, most of the contents delivered to China is like there's a huge time lag, but right now, all the same time, it's very real time basis. However, the Chinese government of the Gong'an, the Chinese police say, don't watch these shows. They guide it to the people. Whereas Thailand say, watch more. Why is that? Because of the contents. The Chinese police saying, okay, this may increase some like disease, for example. One of the examples saying, one Chinese girl who watched Korean shows, like 8 different shows steadily, she just might be losing her eyesight. Or some of the people that divorced because of the stories, blah, blah, blah. I think there's no logic in that. What I want to, we have 2 topics here today about this great firewall. I think number 1 is content controlling from the government, how to understand it, what to understand. And another one is how to have your web performance guaranteed. Because we are here in Europe, China is far away, and we have a great firewall. You cannot guarantee your web performance. How to make your website faster, and how to avoid those problems. So those details, Chris will give you some more presentation. Chris.
Thanks, Alex. Right, I'm definitely between you and coffee now, so I'll get through these. Oh, so that didn't work there. Thank you. Yeah, so obviously what's been happening a lot in China is, and very recently as well, is that the Chinese government have been changing legislation around the type of content that's allowed to come into China. So, what that means is a lot of the brands are having to think about, what is it that's on their website that's potentially at risk of being blocked by the Chinese government. And the most important thing about this is if they don't like your content, your URL is blocked. And what that effectively means is you are out of China. And there's no, let's make a phone call into the Chinese government, have a chat about this and say, hey, can we maybe talk about this? Right? You're blocked, you're blocked. And that is it. And that's why this is so incredibly important, and it's an important subject. And obviously one of the key things for obviously anybody, and a lot of brands that are sitting here today that know about this, obviously when going into Europe, going from Europe going to China, it's all about the licenses. There are a number of different licenses that you have to apply for, and one of the most important ones being the ICP ban. Every single website that wants to be present in China You need to have this ICP ban. It's incredibly important. You cannot go into China without it. If you try to go into China without it, you will be blocked, you will be kicked out of China, your brand will not be in China. There will be no way of getting into China. And obviously they have very specific categories around sort of content types that obviously that can and can't be delivered to China. So as you can see, there's some very obvious ones that are forbidden, right? And I don't need to discuss those, you can see those for yourself. And then obviously those that are sort of on the high list, you know, which people have to be careful about, there's sort of the medium around obviously gaming and sort of entertainment, and then obviously a lot of the low risk stuff around sort of software, enterprise, and obviously a big one which is important here today for the brands is obviously around, you know, e-commerce and driving revenue to the Chinese market. So this is about this is a quick little story about a little piggy that wanted to get into China. Well, in fact, there was a lot of piggies that wanted to get into China, and this was a meat producing company that wanted to basically launch their website into China. So as you can imagine, they wanted to have lots of little piggies on the website, happy, free-range piggies, all running around very happy. But the problem is because of the way the algorithms work, and the way that the Chinese government run the algorithms, you can notice that obviously the flesh tones of the pig are very similar to the flesh tones of humans. And obviously, given that pornography is one of the forbidden, obviously, contents going in there, this particular meat-producing company was blocked purely because of the algorithms that get run by the Chinese government. So it was just a really, so the little piggies didn't actually get into China, which I think is not a bad thing actually. So because I quite like pigs. But it was just good. An agent provocateur. So I know obviously a lot of the ladies in here will have heard of agent provocateur. But again, they were an interesting use case where, again, given that they are a lingerie brand, and obviously there is a lot of skin tone, or so I should say flesh shown, they really had to rethink about what they were going to do about going to China, because there was no way that they could take their Europe or their .com or their .fr sites and launch those into China. They would have been blocked. So I think, and the other important thing in terms of just sort of Chinese culture, don't expect them to bypass regulations and any blocking techniques to get to your content. There's no point trying, because they won't try to get to your content. It just won't happen. And again, I think we talked about conformity. You have to expect to conform if you want to get to your Chinese end users. And I think of all the internet users, what's interesting is greater than 80% believe that these controls are necessary. So you sort of start to understand the nature of how they think and how they behave online. And obviously, 84% believe the government should actually do it, that it's important. So that's interesting. Well, I think it's interesting statistic. And then just very quickly touching on sort of website performance, which obviously is the most important thing for any brand or any type of business trying to launch into China. Obviously, everybody talks about the Great Firewall to China, and how do I get my content? How do I get my applications? And 25 seconds is even today is not unheard of sites that are taking 25 seconds for the actual website page to load. Right, and we'll touch on it in a second. I mean, in China, that's not going to work. And of course, what's actually happening as well is the websites are getting more complex, right? Because what's actually happening is everybody's trying to personalize the websites more and more and more for their end users. So there's a lot more dynamic content. So obviously you have your static content, which are all your nice images and your pictures and everything else, but then you've got all the dynamic content that's going on as well. And you'll notice the stat, you can see it there, I think spring 2012, the median page was taking around 6.8 seconds, spring 2014 over 10 seconds. So, and that's just because the web pages are becoming heavier and more complex. And then obviously what's really important to understand is that obviously, if you are outside of the Great Firewall, even if you are then delivering into the mainland China, all the major telcos that obviously connect to all the Chinese end users don't talk to each other. So there's massive fragmentation in mainland China between all the big telcos that obviously deliver the internet services to the end users, whether they're connecting via mobile or whether they're at home connecting via PC or Mac. So there's a lot of fragmentation, which is another thing. So obviously, you know, it's just some very quick stats there which you can read. Obviously, you know, 9 out of 10 say website speed has obviously got to be one of the most important features. I mean, I always said that, you know, there's no loyalty on the internet, right? If you're trying to get to something and you can't get to it, you will go somewhere else to find it. It's as simple as that, and I think that's really important. And obviously, you know, 9% of European websites with a Chinese version will load under 3 seconds, right? So there was just a couple of interesting stats. And then again, some of the additional stats, you know, plus 10 seconds, unacceptably slow, absolutely 100%. I mean, 76% risk losing their users' attention, and then obviously 1 second, only 2.9 off of their users a seamless response. So it was just some stats to share with you on that. So I think in terms of some do's and don'ts, you know, absolutely you've got to make sure your content doesn't get blocked. I mean, 100%. You know, you've got to be aware of the regulations of doing business in China. That's incredibly important. And again, especially around just regulation and around licensing, incredibly important. And then obviously you've got to integrate that regulatory and technical aspects into your marketing strategy in terms of you know, brands that are now thinking about launching into China. You know, and don't forget, you know, speed absolutely matters in this environment. You know, in terms of you driving your brand to China, driving revenue through your websites, you know, if your site does not load, you know, there are no users to basically purchase your services, or even to promote your brand. If you're a brand like Hermes or whoever that are looking to actually drive people into the retail shops, right, and are purely using it as a marketing engine, well, if they still can't get to your site, they can't. You know, you're not going to drive them into the retail stores. Bang & Olufsen, I think a lot of people probably know who Bang & Olufsen are. You know, they obviously were having some major problems in China, but obviously through working with us, they massively brought down obviously customer complaints, which was caused by website performance. The download time of the homepage we reduced by 90%, and then obviously delivered the content-rich site at a 98% success rate, and that was just a good example. And then there was one other which I hadn't mentioned, but there was a client recently that we worked with who was a large online Dutch supermarket selling into China, and they knew they had problems. And interestingly enough, so they tested our website, or sorry, they tested their website, and I'll talk about this cookie in a second. And they were seeing 45-second page download times inside of China, which was obviously completely unacceptable for the business. So interestingly enough, over the last few weeks, we did a lot of testing with them, and we got that down to under 4 seconds. So you can imagine the dramatic impact to their business of having a website that loads in under 4 seconds. So when you arrived probably yesterday or today, in your bag there is a little sort of CD Networks bag, and inside that bag there's a cookie. So I don't know if anybody's tried the cookies, but if you want a cookie, I'm sure we've got some spare ones as well. And anyway, so inside that cookie there's a little message, right? And you know, and you have the opportunity over the rest of today, if you haven't already, to actually then test your website inside China. So I think, yeah, so thank you.